and welcome to the Next Canon podcast. My name is Danny Ray, and on this podcast, we are working to recreate and reimagine the theater canon so that it is more representative of what we want it to be. I'm so excited today to welcome Anasofia Gallegos. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anasofia Gallegos. My pronouns are they, them. I am an actor, activist, musical theater, and opera goon who talks too much on Instagram. So that's how Danny knows me.
That is a great way that I know you, and I adore it, honestly. Like, you have so many, like, wonderful things to say, and you do it so free form that it's like, you're just, like, venting to your friends, which is, like, my whole, like, I love venting. People don't see it all the time, because in public, I'm like, hello, nice to meet you. Or I'm, like, just sitting in the sidelines, but, like, I love a good vent session. So it's really cathartic in a lot of ways, too, I'm sure, for you, as well as audience members.
Sometimes I forget that people have access to it. I very much treat like my little story as like a diary that I talk to. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is public.
People
People are
see this.
watching. Yeah, and it's sometimes I'll like scroll through to see like who saw it, and I'm like, cool. There was a lot of people that I probably shouldn't have said this to who stuck around, listened to the whole thing, so maybe they learned something. Who knows?
That's awesome. Were you doing things before the pandemic that got like canceled? How was it when the pandemic started for you?
Ooh, yeah, that's the question, right? It was good. I was working full time as an artist. Lucky, lucky me. I was doing She Loves Me at Village Theater, which I feel pretty fortunate actually because we had a full run pretty much. We just got canceled in our last 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
Um, so like I feel pretty fortunate because I had the full experience. We did our whole Issaquah run, and then half of our Everett run, and then it was sad, but it wasn't like as sad as it could have been, right?
Yeah, like you didn't get cut off at Tech Week or like cut off like yeah. That
Just
happened to the
like
kids show
the
I was
typical
working on.
girl. Oh no. I mean, that happened to a lot of shows, and
Yeah.
in that regard, I feel like very lucky that I'm sad, but also like we did our thing.
Yeah. There were no loose
Um,
ends.
yeah, there were no times we like spent our time together. We got to do our shows and like you know, and then I was also at the same time in rehearsals. Actually, we had already opened. We were already opened and we're touring for the Seattle Opera Education Tour. It was directed by Lamar, which was really great. And that show, I was very sad to leave. It was called Earth to Kenzie, and it was a show tailored for elementary school kids. It talked about gentrification and houselessness in the Seattle area specifically. And it was like just a really beautiful show that I really wish had gotten all of its time. They did end up doing a recorded version of it, but I really just like, especially with when like educational outreach shows, it's really like the talk back afterwards. That's like what I think is, I don't know, as a performer, the thing that I love the most. I love talking to the kids, especially as uh, a brown opera singer. I think that a lot of times the questions I get asked are like, "How you look like me? How did you get there?" And I just love talking kids through that. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll get its time at some point.
Yeah, and I mean
Um,
for the kids, it's like instead of a video in class, it's like an experience in their like they get to go out of class, go see it in their assembly area, wherever that is, and then they get to
yeah,
talk to
yeah.
you. It's just like a whole experience for them, which is like way different than watching a video in class or something.
It's really different, and it's really great, especially because we get to go out to Eastern Washington and go to those communities and like Yakima and Wenatchee, and it's just like it's probably the highlight of my spring every single year when it happens. So hopefully we'll get to do that again. There was a third thing, but I don't remember what it was, so it probably wasn't that important. Sorry.
Or it's just not coming up, but yeah, definitely. So in your theater realm where you live in your head and all that stuff, what do you consider canon and what does that mean to you?
That's a really good question. So, I grew up Catholic. I'm no longer Catholic, but that's the basis. And whenever I hear canon, I think of it through that lens of in that world, right? Canon means like unquestionable good
Mm.
or like unquestioned tomes of whatever literature, blah blah blah. And if you're to canonize a saint, you're going to put them into the legion of like, these are the people that are unquestionably good. And I think that we've learned as a collective more than once, but I think we were reminded pretty strongly in the last like year or so that there are very few, if any, things that can be considered unquestionably good, right?
Yeah.
I think all things have blind spots, things that could be learned from, things that could be improved on. So, yeah, that's what I think of when I hear the word canon. I know that in this context, we're talking more about like in the lexicon of things, like the canon of musical theater is like Rodgers and Hammerstein and Sondheim and blah, 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 right? Like what is the standard repertoire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. No one has said that yet. That's like really that one's
Really?
really interesting. Yeah, everyone pretty much says something slightly different. So it's really fascinating that that's like what comes to your mind in that sense. But yeah, in this sense, it's like the musical theater canon is so established as well. Like people are like, this is canon. And then some people are like, no, my canon is the things that I know, or something like that.
Yeah, it's precedent, right?
Yeah.
Like, mhm.
Yeah, and then in the like straight theater type of canon, straight theater, I put air quotes, um, in like plays and generative work. Well, generative, there's no real canon, but plays, no one really talks about what is canon. We just all know the same type of shows, like
Mhm.
like Death of a Salesman, I say consistently, and like stuff like that, where you're like, oh, that show, I know it, but I don't need to see it. Like I know it.
Yeah,
I know
like
of
you've read a scene from it and now you're good. In a sense.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. What shows jump to mind when you think of like theater canon?
Oh, Oklahoma
That's a
is
big
probably
one.
one of the big ones. I probably think of like Sweeney Todd. I think of, I mean, yeah, all of Rodgers and Hammerstein, all of Sondheim. I think of like some like the 70s era, like Godspell, Hair, Rock of Ages. Oh, our favorite, and by our favorite, I say that with heavy quotations because I absolutely despise Andrew Lloyd Webber, but like Andrew Lloyd Webber, I would say is canon. And then we have new canon, right? Of like a lot of shows that are sort of in the same vein of things. I think that like Hamilton is new canon. I think that
Hmm.
Dear Evan Hansen is new canon. Mean Girls is new canon. Blah 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 blah. Right.
Yeah, 100%. In that sort of canon, is there a show that has got to go? And maybe not the newer canon, but like maybe the newer canon. Who's to say?
Oh, definitely the newer canon. Let's go.
Let's go.
So, okay, this is gonna be met with some pushback probably, and that's okay. That's okay if you disagree with me. This is conversation, right? I'm gonna put Big Umbrella and then two shows specifically that I'm talking about. So, Big Umbrella, shows written about a culture by white people. So, under that umbrella is like The King and I, Miss Saigon, and the two that I'm going to talk about are like West Side Story and Evita. Those gotta go. I know that people, okay, there's a lot of pushback, especially even when I'm talking to other Latina people. By the way, hello, I'm Latina. I am Mexican, Filipino, and Bolivian. Na, 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 na.
Da, da,
This
da,
is
da, da, da.
the point of which I'm entering this conversation and theater as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Um, I am really disinterested in the white man's perspective of my heritage, my culture, and my friends, family, people, right?
Hmm.
West Side Story, gotta go. It's gotta go, my guy. It's gotta go. I get it. People love the dancing, people love the music. That's totally fine. That's great. There are a lot of really good jams in a lot of things that can go. You know what I mean? And if you really want to do it, you can do it as a concert ballet version. I don't need to see the play produced ever again.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I am just not interested in seeing any story that includes people who look like me or my family getting shot. being arrested, being made to be the villain, or being sexual assault warning in 3, 2, 1 raped, especially gang raped in the same way that Anita is in West Side
Mm-hmm.
Story. And I say that and people go like, "What gang rape scene?" I'm like, "See, this is the issue. So we made a dance about it when you're missing the point of like there is a scene where she is alone in a room full of white men, pinned down and assaulted." But we love America, right? So that's got to go. That's got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't care who you cast in it. I really don't. I really don't because like
Right.
it's not representative of me. So you can
Yeah.
put brown bodies in that show. You can put people who look like me in that show, but those people will never be representative of me. I don't care who you cast.
Yeah.
So fun fact, it was never intentionally meant for Puerto Rican people. The original idea for West Side Story was between Irish Catholic people and Jewish people in New York City. A very similar play came along on Broadway at the same time, so they changed their mind while they were lounging in California, read a headline about Chicano violence in Los Angeles, and said, "Oh, that would be interesting. Let's do that instead." So the intent from the get go was never about Puerto Rican people. So the investment in that culture wasn't there because that wasn't the point. They just wanted to make sure that they had a different marketing scheme than I think it's called Abbey Rose, which came out the same year.
That is not a very fun fact. Like,
I mean, and like this is the thing where I'm like, there was no investment from the get go. I
yeah.
think, you know, I think that you can. It's cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation, right? I think there's such thing as cultural appreciation, sure, but that comes from a deep rooted respect. That comes from a deep love of the people that that culture is from, right? And it also means that you're not directly gaining from the use of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no combination of director, choreographer, cast, team you can put together that's going to make West Side Story appreciation instead of appropriation. So that one's got to go.
So drop the mic. And yeah, like that one has that one's always like a rubs people a certain way, whichever way that be. Even in these conversations, it's like I think someone said it did great things for someone at some point, but then it ruined their career or like XYZ. I don't remember exactly what the statement
Well, yeah,
was.
I think that it's one of those things where like it got brown people on stage at a time
Yeah.
where brown people weren't being seen on stage, right? That gave us Cheetah, that gave us Rita. Incredible,
Yeah.
amazing. And now it's been over 50 years. And still the main musicals in our canon that are for Latine people are West Side Story, Evita, and In the Heights. And only one of those three is written by someone who considers himself to be Latine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
It's a big
Because why
problem.
do we value the white person's lens of our stories more than our own? The problem I have with West Side Story and Evita and shows like it is that when those shows are being put in seasons, that's a check mark, and now new musicals aren't being produced because, well, we have the one show, so we can just put in the one show because developing new work, hard, expensive. We don't want to do it. So let's just go with this one show. We can check it off our list, and then like we're good to go, and then we can revisit this in 5 years.
Yeah, the same one will come back in 5 years.
The same one will come back in 5 years with
Because
half of the same
people
cast.
just love it. They
People
love
just
to
love
see it.
it. So let's move on to Evita. Let's move on to Evita. Like
Oh,
I said,
yes, yes,
Andrew Lloyd
yes.
Webber and I. Ooh, so I'm South American, and I actually spent a good amount of my childhood growing up in Bolivia. Fun fact about my family has personal ties to the Perón family in Argentina. Again, appropriation versus appreciation. I think that Evita is a controversial figure even in South America, especially in South America. And the way that Andrew Lloyd Webber stripped her of her agency and made her sort of like a Marie Antoinette esque Let Them Eat Cake or a Cleopatra only about sex kind of storyline, which is, by the way, not true of either one of those people, but that's what we see mainly in the culture. Um, yeah, it just rips her and robs her of her voice. And it also conveniently distracts from the fact that Perron, her husband, was a Nazi sympathizer. And like those things were happening at the same time of the storyline of Evita.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about the fact that Perron's husband involuntarily gave Evita a lobotomy because she was starting to fight against his political reign. So these are the conversations that someone from the culture might be having. But instead, we get Rainbow High with Pia LuPone and Madonna. Oh, and Che is played by Mandy Patinkin. Come on, guys. Come on. And I love Mandy Patinkin, but take a seat. Take a seat. Maybe stay with George Strat, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I gotta say about that. I feel like we as a collective have mostly understood that Kink and I, no go. No, not so much. But Evita and West Side Story were going to be produced here within the last 2 years in Seattle. Hi, Fifth Ave.
Hey, C-Town, what's up?
What's up? And done incorrectly. I'm just going to say it. Done incorrectly.
Yeah.
So, think you learned from King and I. Great. Good start. Let's get these out too.
Yeah. It's a lot of like the shows, a lot of shows that have problems within them are shows from, like you said, like 50 or so years ago, because people were not being as mindful as they are now, and they were not worried about it at all. They were like, this is fine. And by that, I mean like the white men writers are doing that. So
true. But yes, and let's talk about Dear Evan Hansen.
Yes, let's.
In
in celebration with air quotes of the trailer coming out yesterday, I looked out like this with my face. It? Yeah. Also, what was going on with his face? Like, what? No shade, but like they tried to age you down.
Full shade. What are we doing here? I mean, I'm so happy to see movies based off of musicals that are cast with musical theater folk.
Oh,
that's
fun. Great. Yes.
Love that. Baby boy, you are 30. You are 30. You look 30. And that's okay. That's okay. But yeah,
you should look 30.
Cuz you are. Okay? And when it was 2016 and it was the Tonys and you were 25, you were pulling off a little bit more of a baby boy. But that's not the problem. The problem with, so we talked about how I'm Latina, yeah? I'm also neurodivergent and mentally ill. We're talking therapy for the past like 12 years. So much therapy, so many medications. As someone who is also depressed, someone who also has social anxiety, someone who, I am autistic, I am ADHD. We've got, we really just like rolled the dice and like got all snake eyes, right? Awesome. We're looking into bipolar. It's like just a really cute bouquet of things. You know what I've never done? Lied to a family whose child has died in the effort to sleep with the dead boy's sister. You know what I haven't done? That. Let's talk about harm. You being mentally unwell does not mean that you are released from the responsibility of doing harm unto others. And I think the only reason that storyline is flying through is because it's a white boy.
Yeah, and they're really selling into the I was just trying to help. They thought something and I couldn't say no. I was just trying to help. It wasn't quite that way in what I listened to of the musical, but like in the scenes in the trailer, they were like sad face Ben Platt, like, I don't know what I did. I'm like, okay, we're going for the it was an accident moment. Like you kind of
and like just playing that for 2 hours and over the course of what, weeks in the actual show, right?
Yeah.
No, in the musical, he acknowledges like, ooh, I did a fuck up real fast, and then just goes, let's lean into it.
Let's keep it going.
let's see how far we can go.
Yeah. And like you said, there are great songs in shows that have to go. Like
Mhm.
one of my favorite songs to almost sing for auditions, but I don't sing at auditions, was Requiem, like her part in Requiem. Beautiful, love it. And I like emotional, emo, we live. But like question
Oh,
mark?
Pasek and Paul can write
Yeah.
a song that means nothing. I mean, truly, bops, all of them, bops. Meaning where?
Waving through a window.
What's the anthem one from it? You will be found.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a
Try
jam, a bop.
again. Yeah.
But in context, not as inspirational.
Questionable. Yeah.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, I think it's pretty easy to look at older shows and be like, oh, it was a generational thing. We didn't know better. It's still happening though. It's still happening though.
Mm-hmm.
Still happening though. Once on This Island was written by white people, which is a revival, right? I actually was talking to a friend, Nicholas Bernard, and we were trying to pick songs for a cabaret. And we wanted to do songs for black performers written by black composers. Dreamgirls, white team. The Color Purple, white team. Once on This Island, white team. It's a problem. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to see some more stories written for and by people from who those stories belong to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Quick shout out, Raisins in a Glass of Milk has just announced their live in Florida, but online everywhere else show for this year. Maya and Lexi have both been on, so go listen to their episodes as well. Amazing content. I'm so excited. Um, just love them. Go follow and keep your eyes on it. It's amazing. Anyways, back to the topic.
Maya, I love you.
We love them. Oh, they're huge mentors of mine, and they know that, and I just adore them so much.
We did a show together this year during the pandemic. We had a little Zoom show, and I just like I'm so in love with them, with their little faces,
Right?
with the little reactions, with the talent. I just I love them.
They're
I'll say that out loud.
literally. I do too. I love them so much.
I
They
love you,
were
Maya.
like.
This is not the mic, but
We love you, Maya and Lexi. I hope that was as creepy as I wanted it to be.
oh, I hope so. You'll
Yeah.
love it.
They'll love it. So moving into like shows we should know as we talk about Raisins in a Glass of Milk 2021 or Raisins 2021. What shows should we know about, or what shows should be canon?
Oh, that's a really good question. Shows that should be canon. I think that In the Heights should be produced everywhere all the time, for always.
Mm-hmm.
And I say In the Heights and not Hamilton for a reason. In the Heights is Lynn's love story to his home. And it was, I'll tell the story to anybody who will listen. I got to see it on Broadway, like in previews. I got to see the original cast.
Shut
Oh yeah,
up.
I saw it
Shut
2 weeks
up.
after my grandma died too. So like this was not.
Oh
I didn't
no,
know
you were
anything.
destroyed.
My great grandmother. So I was just like bawling.
Yeah.
So I got a scholarship to go with my very rich, very white high school to New York. We were performing in Carnegie Mellon, and I was like, I can't go. And they're like, no one else is applying for the scholarship because no one else has to, so it's yours. And I was like, yay,
Huzzah.
concerned. But I got to go to New York, um, and it was me, two friends from choir, and their mother. All of them were white except for me. Me, distraught, sobbing, and then being like, "We liked it. What? Are you okay? Are you?" But it was the first time. It was the first time I'd ever seen anyone who looked like me on stage before. And
Yeah.
like anyone who looked like my family on stage before. And like my Chayo, who is my great grandmother, she looked just like the actor who played Abuela Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can imagine, her, and also just to have 7 minutes of just like an older woman just dominating the stage was just like revolutionary to me. The book writer, Kira Alegría Jueves, I mean, just the script was perfect, and like the way that she wrote women was perfect, and it was just beautiful, beautiful. And it wasn't we weren't shot at, we weren't thugs, we weren't victims. It was just a girl stressed about school coming home and fall in love with a boy. It was just like the neighborhood dweeb who can't muster up the courage to talk to the neighborhood baddie. It was just, you know what I mean? It was just a
Yeah.
father who wanted to provide for his daughter. It was just a grandmother who loved her surrogate children. You know what I mean? Like, it was just beautiful.
Hmm.
And I think that more shows like that need to be seen.
Yeah.
I it with it wasn't taken out of the realm of reality. They were still talking about gentrification. They're still talking about what it is to be a Latina person in this country, but it wasn't just that.
Right.
And I'm not interested in watching trauma porn anymore. Not a thing that I would like to pay money on. Um, I want to see us have good times and have just like day to day fails. In the same vein, American Mariachi is a play with music that I love. And it's the same thing where she has struggles. It's talking about this is in the 70s, I think in California. And at the time, mariachis, which is like, traditional folk music, you play at like bars, whatever, was dominated by men. It still is. And this was about a group of a girl and her best friend, and then they find some strangers, some churchgoers, some neighbors, and they form an all female mariachi group because the main character's mother has like Alzheimer's, and like one of her favorite tracks was this mariachi tune that she wanted to like play for her mother. And it was just beautiful. It was just like a celebration of culture that wasn't removed from reality. Like it's still within like the realm of like this is the existence that we're in, but it was about uh, the matriarchal relationships. It was about female bonding. It was about music. It was about culture, and it was just about like changing and like progression, right? And that's that shit I do like. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Yes. 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 12 exclamation points. That just sounds so beautiful.
It's beautiful. I have one last one, sorry, just because
Yeah.
it was local.
Yes.
Um, Shout out to Jay O'Leary, my friend, my the love of my life, my mentor. She's my everything. We met because we did a production of Welcome to Arroyos, which is written by Christoph or Christopher Diaz, Christopher Diaz. And it takes place in New York. It's about Puerto Ricans, New Ricans, and it's about family and loss and relationships and finding community where you have none, creating family relationships. And it is just, again, joy. It is just so much joy, and that's what I want to see. So I think that just note to everyone, if you want to produce Welcome to Arroyos, you should. Small cast, I think, be good for the upcoming season or two in this post-pandemic world. So
Yes. After the Ponder replay.
after the Pandulce.
After the Pendulce. Yeah, yeah, yeah. um, that's that's so wonderful. We just need joy. We just need joy.
And not just joy. I mean, like I think that there can't be like this false artificial sweetness to only joy, right?
Yes.
Of
Yes.
like I want there to be acknowledgement of like the full existence of what it means to be a person of color. So, yes, joy. Of course joy, because that's a part of everyday life.
Hmm.
If it was all that scene in West Side Story all day, we wouldn't be here. I want stories about resilience and like what brings you from moment to moment, right?
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking for. I'm looking for the full experience and the full existence and the full humanity of the global majority. I don't want to pick and choose just our trauma
Hmm.
or just our joy. because neither one of those things is a real human, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All in one. Like humanity, like you just said. It's
Yeah.
just it's got so many facets and everyone's is different.
Everyone is different, but it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be that deep either. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the thing that I'm asking for is like not that big of a deal. You know?
Yeah.
It really isn't. I want to see a story where a boy falls in love with a girl, and the big decision she has is which prom dress does she want to wear. A girl falls in love with a girl, and the biggest, thing she has to deal with is, ooh, it's nerve wracking to ask out a girl that you like. That's it. That's the whole show. I would love to see it.
And it was a musical too, if you didn't notice. It's nerve-wracking too. Like, you went into a melody. Love it. It's a musical, just so everyone knows.
Yes, that's my third language I speak is nasality, nasal singing.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. Cheers to modern musical theater.
Speaking of modern musical theater or regular theater
Oh,
or whatever kind of theater, do you have any shows that are happening around you right now that you would like to promote to the people?
I do. I sure do.
Yes.
I want to shout out Romeo y Julieta, which is being produced and is being streamed by Seattle Shakes. Anna Maria wrote the adaptation of the script. Sophie Franco directed it. A lot of my friends are in it, and they're very talented and very good, and it's really great, and you should watch it. Also, I don't know if these are going to be available, but I want to shout out the Seattle Opera program, where they are having folks who've never written an opera write mini operas.
Yeah.
Rihanna did one, and Kylie Archer did one, and it's just a really cool program. I don't know if we're ever gonna see any of it, but I would love to. I really would. I love the idea of investing in the community and teaching people who don't know how to do things so that we have the ability to tell our own stories, right?
Right.
Because I feel like a lot of it is lack of access, lack of training, and filling that gap is something that I really want to be recognized of like, cool, you want to tell these stories, you see that people aren't like lining up to tell these stories, or maybe that's your perception, right? How do we bridge that gap of like making these people's words into something that we can produce? Love that.
Love it.
Um, love to see it. Really
We
do.
do.
I think that's all I got. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any personal projects or anything that you would like to promote to the people, like your Instagram or anything?
Sure, you can follow me on Instagram at a.gal. That's it, a gal. Um, don't be confused, my pronouns are still they, them, but it's a.gal is where you can find me having
Don't be
daily
confused.
rants.
Don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted. Still not a woman over here. We are a potato. We are a flock of bats in a trench coat. We are a panda bear that has learned sentience. Like that's that's where we are. Um, a gummy bear, if you will. I feel most akin to a panda bear, just like lazy, clumsy, and like without like human involvement, they would have already been like extinct. Like they're only alive because we think they're cute. And if that isn't my existence, I'm only alive because people think I'm cute and want to help me. Love that.
We do. We do. And we love the videos of baby panda bears rolling down hills on accident.
So cute.
They're so
So
cute.
cute. So clumsy.
Like, where are all of their appendages? We don't always know. We'll find them, but we don't always know where they are.
Don't always know where they are. They don't always know where they are.
Of course
The
not.
fact that the fact that such a big animal exists off of grass, I think is so funny. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Useless
Isn't that
vegan
crazy?
here. Hello. I
Hey,
love that.
all of the convergence to make you into a panda bear is just all there.
It's all there.
That's amazing. My very last sneaky question before we say goodbye for today is, who would you like to see on this podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I'm trying to think of who hasn't already been on the podcast that I want to see on this podcast. Sophie Franco? Has Sophie Franco already been on the podcast?
No, I think I tried to reach out to them, but they were on an email hiatus at the time. but
That's fair. Yeah, Sophie, or Nicholas Bernard, or B. Russell. Yeah, or I have a lot of
you can
recommendations. I
send
could
me a
keep
list.
going.
Shermona sent me a list last week as well, so I live for it.
Great. I'll send you a list because I have lots of friends, so I think are very, very smart.
Fantastic. I adore that. Yeah, any last things to say to the people before goodbye?
Last things to say to the people. Mm, listen more than you talk and read the whole article. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for being here, Anasofia. I super loved meeting you today and having this chat. If you are listening, do give us, I don't know, a like, a subscribe, a follow. Give us like 5 stars would be good. Whatever you're supposed to do on the platform that you are watching or listening on would be fantastic. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.